order on Wednesday, November 14th, and ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And please join us in a moment of silence while we remember all those men and women who have served our country both here and abroad, and especially for those who have given their lives for us. Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on any topic that's not on the agenda? Is there anybody here who wishes to record this meeting other than our official recorder? Okay, so you can if you want to, but we always like to know that we're being recorded by somebody else. So then in that case, we're going to talk to our AmeriCorps volunteers. Darlene's not here. Are we expecting her?
No, Darlene will not be.
She won't be here. Okay, well then why don't you introduce yourself and
yes,
and tell us what you...
Yeah, well, my name's Riley Moffett, and I'm the program coordinator of AmeriCorps Cape Cod. We have two members here with us today. We thought you guys would enjoy hearing it from the people who are on the ground. We have Matt Spears, who is with the new Fire Corps initiative, and he will be able to speak about their deployment down to Staten Island with the National Park Service. We also have Jason Ross here today, who is has an individual placement with the REPC here at the county. And he worked closely with Sean in the response here on the Cape and in Barnstable County. And he can also speak to how our Corps was deployed here and his involvement there. So I'll open it up to you two. We also have Amy Henderson here, who's the program specialist who leads our new Fire Corps initiative.
Good. Well, welcome. Well, we're very interested in hearing about your experience at Staten Island. So why don't you tell us about it, Matt?
So we were deployed to New York City, to Staten Island, with the National Park Service. On Sunday, we traveled to the Fort Wadsworth, and on our journey down, we actually witnessed the long lines at the gas stations. And as we came to Greenwich, Connecticut, we couldn't get diesel anymore. They were all out of diesel, and gas was being scarce. We did find one gas station, and they opened their gas pumps for us because we were emergency responders responding to Staten Island. When we got to Fort Wadsworth, we were tasked with cleaning up debris on Ellis Island and the Statue of Liberty. Both islands were in disrepair. They were flooded anywhere from 2 to 5 feet, and a lot of the buildings on Liberty Island were destroyed and will have to be demolished. The base of the statue was flooded, and a lot of the buildings on Ellis Island were hit very hard with water, and even the office supplies were destroyed. It's going to take a long, long time for those two islands to reopen. But with the National Park Service fire crew and AmeriCorps crew, we headed the repair, and we cleaned up a lot of the debris. There was Parks Police stationed on both islands, and they had 3 trailers on Ellis Island which had to be demolished and removed. We filled up, I believe, 8 30-yard dumpsters of debris in our 7 days there. We were using bobcats, bucket loaders, and even came down to buckets and brooms. And it was truly an honor to be there. When I got the word that we were being deployed, my first initial idea of what we were going to be doing was working with the people of New York, helping them get back on their feet. But when we got down there and figured out that it's not really what we were going to be doing, we were going to be working with the National Park Service, cleaning up these 2 monuments, it almost became more important, because not only do the people of New York see these 2 icons, but the people of the whole world view these icons as America. And AmeriCorps and the National Park Service put our stamp on those 2 islands. We started the recovery, which is going to be a very long process, but we were the ones who started it.
And how long were you there?
8 days.
8 days. And where did you stay while you were there?
We stayed in Fort Wadsworth. It was almost like an office building was our dormitory. They put us in our own room, and we had air mattresses. Our days ranged from 12 to 16 hours, but we had hot showers and hot food. So
And the Park Service provided the food?
Park Service provided everything.
Everything, huh?
It was run by the Park Service.
Where did all the trash go, all the debris?
Two dumpster companies. I'm not sure where they actually were taken, but all the debris went into dumpsters.
Arthur Kill is the biggest pile of garbage in the world.
Where?
At Arthur Kill.
It's on Staten Island.
In
Staten
Staten
Island?
Island is the biggest
I don't know if they
pile
still
of.
bring it there.
But
I
Staten
think-
Island
in the
itself
world.
was a pile of
And,
debris.
well, they
I think it
were
just got
adding to
bigger
it.
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really a shame. I used to work or do some work down in at the Arthur Kill station, and that's how I found out that bit of trivia. Staten Island is like our Boston sections of Dorchester, in terms of very residential. It's made up of what you'd call really good people. Blue collar, a lot of police, a lot of fire service live down there, and the fact that you heard these reports about the fire service personnel basically were helping other people and not able to help their own families. It was really something that hit me. Thank you for doing
Yes.
It was truly an honor.
Did you experience any fires of any kind while you were there? No, not on those islands.
Not on the islands.
Great. Well, thank you for doing it. That was.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us be a part of this.
Well, we would not want to have done anything other than that. Right.
that. That's good stuff.
And how about, tell me your first name again?
Amy.
Jason, that's right. Oh, Amy, who's going to talk next?
Oh, Jason.
Jason, you're next. Yeah.
Hi, Jason. I'm with Sean O'Brien over at the REPC, and I was able to get with him to check out the Mac over at Otis, and they put me into the operational period for 12 hours. They had me taking care of the resources, so if there was any request for any kind of trucks or sandbags, it would come into the Mac, and we would kind of help other departments figure out what they needed and get them the resources. So
Tell us what the MAC is.
it's the Multi-Agency Coordination Center, and it's pretty much the base for the hurricane that day. And if any of the fire or police departments from around have certain priorities, they can contact the MAC, and we try to help them out as much as possible, keep track of everything going on.
And where's that located on the base?
It was at the fire station.
Oh, at the fire station on the base.
We had a couple rooms there they gave us. to
And that's
use.
where you stay?
Yes, well, I didn't really stay there. I was there for like 12 hours,
Oh.
so I just kind of helped out throughout the night. It was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. And then our other AmeriCorps members, they were deployed that morning to different shelters, 3 different shelters around the Cape, and they got to help set up like cots and help out with other, like preparing food and getting everything ready.
So what part of the Cape was really hit the most, would you say? Were you able to
I think Falmouth had some flooding.
Falmouth? Yeah.
Parts of 28 were closed, 28A, and I think some of the outer Cape maybe. I'm not really sure though.
Okay.
Were you guys still working sort of when the nor'easter went by? Because that seemed to be worse in some places than even Sandy, right? Or were you still guys on duty or?
We were not.
No, you weren't. Yeah.
We didn't help out with anything like that.
Yeah, we were very lucky.
Yeah, I happened to be at a meeting in the library in Falmouth the night of that microburst.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you could hear this roar. And, outside, because the library has a lot of windows, I could hear this roar and I thought, what is that? And then all of a sudden the rain came down so hard. And that's what they say, the microburst causes whatever rain is in the air to and it pushes it right down. And it was like that. And then lightning. And then about 8 minutes later it was gone. But across the street, trees had fallen into some houses, and but we didn't know about that. But anyway, so that's, yeah,
So it's
Falmouth did. I happened to, the Senate President happened to come to Falmouth the day after the storm, and I happened to go on the tour of the town with her and the town manager and the DPW director, and it was really amazing to see the surf drive, you know, where the road race goes along the beach there, it was just totally pulled up and out and caved in and whatever. And then Manon Beach, which is a very popular beach in the summertime, the sidewalks just lifted right up along the road and got pushed into the road. So those were the two areas, I think, other than the major trees that fell, were the two areas that were severely damaged in this storm.
We did organize some service projects after the fact with the Town of Falmouth Beach Department, helping down on those roads to help clean up with the DPW and the beach department. We did reach out to all towns on the Cape and through the REPC to all emergency officials here, making sure there wasn't any other service that we could provide. But yeah, that was one of our few post-storm, but I think we got very, very lucky here on the Cape and dodged a bullet.
Yeah.
Are you guys still on standby for deployment to New York, or is that?
Technically, yes. So we did through MEMA, the Massachusetts Emergency Management, geared ourselves up once we made sure there was no immediate needs here on the Cape in Barnstable County. Reached out to see what else we could do. There was the potential for deployment through Massachusetts to New York shelters, which we are trained to do. Right as we were geared up to go, New York actually canceled their request for out-of-state shelter assistance. So we are technically still on standby in case they do have that need in the future. But yeah.
I've been told that that if the Red Cross receives any money for relief in New York and New Jersey, it will be directly sent to New York and New Jersey. And I would encourage people that are watching this that the need, while the event is over, the need would continue for some time, and I would encourage them to send money to the Red Cross to help for the continuing need for relief. Because what I'd heard was that although people and material was welcome, what was really needed was cash.
And just to mention, he mentioned Sean O'Brien, who's the head of our REPC, Regional Emergency Planning Committee. Sean is on deployment along with Mark Foley, who's the Deputy Director at the Fire Training Academy. And they're acting as incident command at the incident command system. I believe they're working on Staten Island. I didn't get an update more recently than I think Sunday. And they're staying on the Mass Maritime ship, exactly, because they couldn't find a place to stay.
Kennedy.
So the Kennedy,
Yeah.
exactly. So.
We deployed our ship too.
Yes,
Well, it's
it
not
was
our
ordered.
ship, but the Mass Maritime
It
was
was-
asked to deploy the ship. Yeah,
Yeah, it was ordered by
Yeah.
by Washington.
yeah.
So we've got all kinds of representation,
Yeah.
Yeah.
land, sea, and I don't know about air, but I guess land and sea.
And you mentioned Staten Island. There's a very sad article in the Sunday New York Times about the Midland neighborhood of
Yeah, I saw
Staten
that,
Island.
yeah.
That's where they had the 8 deaths, I believe,
Yeah.
and sort of basically the neighborhood got inundated by the storm surge. It's really tragic.
I was so surprised when I went to Staten Island the first time that it's just, you're in Manhattan, the bag ladies and the big buildings, and you go out to Staten Island and it's residential neighborhoods. I mean, it's a suburban, very nice place that, that you figure that, regular people could afford to live, So it's really devastating when those people.
And Breezy
get-
Point, which was just
Yeah.
annihilated.
Yeah.
It's,
Okay, well, you're doing good work. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you
Yeah,
so
sure.
much
Thank you
for
for
supporting
representing
us
us down
and
there.
giving us the
Thank
opportunity
you.
to serve.
Yes.
Well, this is why
Kim-
AmeriCorps is such a terrific resource. When these things happen, we have this resource to turn to help. So.
And we were
Not to
blessed
mention all the other stuff they do.
that we didn't have our own, needs, and we were able to help those folks down there.
So, well, thank you for being AmeriCorps volunteers, and thank you for what you just did. That was terrific.
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for coming in and sharing it with us. Thank you. Good. Okay.
You're going to give a progress report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, he is.
As you recall, back in September, let me find my copies of this. I had given you this for your kind of reading pleasure, but I didn't technically go over the contents. So here's some extra copies if people want them. I know in the audience, 3, 4, here's 5 copies if people want to take those. Jerry, you got one. I sent you one, but you're certainly welcome to take one again.
Mark, before you start, I just want to say that Sheila's not here at our meeting today because she is at the National Seashore meeting, which they had to somehow postpone to today, so that's why she's not here.
Jerry, here, if you would. You got a couple? There you go. Okay. So, what I wanted to do was just put together sort of a quick update on where we were with the Special Commission recommendations. And in my report, I basically break them into 2 pieces. Rob and Henri's report doesn't specifically do that, but sort of that's how they break out. They break out into functional recommendations and sort of the governance recommendations. And I just took them one by one. And as you know, we've spent probably the last 9 or 10 months, going back into earlier in the year, reviewing each of these and having each of these sort of agencies, departments, whatever, come in and report to you about what's going on. And we've done, I think, just about all of those. And for example, recommendation number 1 was transportation. We had the Tom Caher come in, talk about the Cape Cod Regional Transit Authority. Paul Nizwicki gave an update on what was going on with transportation. And I think I would characterize the status of this recommendation as embraced by the county and the region, continue to pursue improvements in this area, but we really didn't have any further action warranted at this time. That was the transportation one. Second one, wastewater. Over the past several years, we spent a lot of time on wastewater. We also had Andrew and Paul come in, give you an update on wastewater. Since that time, you've gotten the report back, or the kind of preliminary report, a status update. And so it's sort of the same thing. We've been working on it. We are working on it. We know we have a lot of work to do. But in terms of the recommendations, not really anything further to do at this point in time. Recommendation number 3 was the environment. You heard from George Hoyfelder in July. George talked about some of the beach monitoring activities and his work with DEP to get a clear path for the regulatory approval process for IA systems. I will mention also we met with Wynn Monroe on Thursday at the town manager's luncheon. Wynn was the invited guest, and he gave us an update on Falmouth's Echo Toilet process. So that was very enlightening. So there's a lot of things sort of outside the county sphere that we're actively involved in, because George is a prominent participant in the Echo Toilet.
He's a
process.
consultant on the project. Yeah. He's been hired to.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
So there's. And also George brought the hoarding task force, which I think is a good example of things that the county has involvement in and looks at issues that may be facing people from a health perspective that frankly we don't throw a lot of resources at. I mean, George sort of recognized that there's a need out there and there's these issues that need to be dealt with. Is there anything specific in the budget about the hoarding task force? No, but he sort of reacts to these things and works on them because they need to be worked on. So
I just wanted to comment a little further on the relationship between the county and the Falmouth. It's called the Water Quality Management Committee. In the last conference that we had here a couple of weeks ago over at the Resort Conference Center, it was brought up by people not only from America but from some of the other countries who were represented at that conference, like Australia. And they were saying you can't just talk about wastewater, you have to talk about water, because wastewater comes from water. And they were even suggesting that we not even use the term wastewater anymore, that we call it used water, because that has a totally different connotation. If you say, this is a woman from Australia, if you say wastewater, it means that it's no good anymore and you have to get rid of it. But actually, if it's used water, there are ways to recycle the water and recover the value of the water. But the Falmouth Water Quality Management Committee, which is the wastewater review committee, actually came up with 10 innovative alternatives that they wanted to explore. And town meeting funded that study of $500,000 toward looking at different alternatives, such as permeable reactive barriers, such as inlet widening, I think, which is one of them, and the eco toilets was another one. And they wanted to find 60 homeowners who would volunteer to put an eco toilet in their home, and agree that that it could be monitored over a period of time, so they would know whether or not there's any change in the nitrogen in the water quality that comes from
Right.
that particular area.
Right.
And I'm not sure how many. I think they had a hard time getting people to volunteer to do that.
They're still working on that, Wynn said. They're still kind
Yeah,
of in that
they've
process.
offered an incentive of something like $5,000 or $6,000 a home, which may or may not be sufficient. I don't know. But they also, I think, town meeting just or may be voting tonight a bylaw or some sort of a amendment to a bylaw that says that those who hook up to eco toilets would not be required to hook up to a sewer, because by state law, if the sewer goes by your property, you have to hook up to it. That they would not have to, nor would they have to pay the betterment for the sewer. So to kind of exempt them from that. But there's a state law that governs that too, so those two have to somehow come together. But at least they're moving along and looking at the alternatives and seeing how well they might work as the alternative to sewering.
Right, if you want to build sort of the eco toilets into your comprehensive wastewater management plan, the only way to do that is to have DEP say they're okay, and the only way to have DEP say they're okay is to have the data that says they are okay, and that's sort of what the whole thing is.
Right, because it's all part of the plan, which is now being reviewed by the state and the Cape Cod Commission. So if the state approves the plan, then what they're saying is, finally, yes, we will support the use of innovative alternatives in certain situations.
And just let me add on that, on the hoarding task force, I continue to make progress on that. And I would recommend to anybody that they take a look at what the intent of the hoarding task force has. And so far, I think I'm up to 11 green bags full of clothes and stuff that basically has left the house. They certainly are very effective in the way they put it to you. So
I didn't direct that at you
I
specifically.
bet you didn't.
No, I did not.
but Barbara's very pleased.
So,
Can I ask a question in
Sure.
relation? I remember the commission was going to do a study of the usage of fertilizer and things on the garden, which also create the nitrogen flow. And I recall that seemed like a very good venture to find out and restrict the sale or monitor it. And I wondered if any report had been made.
We haven't had a report yet from the commission.
Well,
on that.
actually,
Have
no, but our cooperative extension and George Hoyfelter have been looking at this, not at what the Cape Cod Commission, because that is an independent activity and one that is in addition to what the health department and cooperative extension have been doing for years. And the issue becomes a measurement of the proper application of fertilizer and what your vegetation or your vegetative matter takes up in terms of its use. So while what the Cape Cod Commission is doing is a very is what I would call a very narrowly focused study, we have been running studies on this for years and years and years, and if you wanted more information on that, if you would go to the Cooperative Extension website, I think there is some information on the effect of it.
That would enter into this discussion, wouldn't it?
Wastewater? Yes, and you might want to know that the Falmouth Town Meeting last night passed the first nitrogen management bylaw. I don't know of any other town that's passed one yet.
Wow.
And it prohibits the use of fertilizers from October to March, when obviously everything is dormant anyhow. But it's about 3 or 4 pages long, and I should send it to you. It's not, it also affects golf courses. It prohibits the use of any fertilizer, and it can only use organic, but it prohibits the use of any within 100 feet of a resource area, because there are a lot of homes on the water. If you look at them, the grass goes right down to the, to the beach. So everything would have to be 100 feet in from that. It's a pretty interesting bylaw. So it's probably on the website.
And the
It's called the
county
nutrient management bylaw. And you have to have one in order to get, I thought you had to, at town, in order to get funding under the state, and the sewer relief fund, is that what it's called? Sewer relief, you know, the SR,
SRF. right?
SRF, sewer
SRF.
relief, sewer, not relief, it's
That's
something.
the state revolving fund.
State revolving fund.
Yeah,
Well, I call it
SRF.
sewer relief. Same letters. Anyway, same problem, same issue. I always thought that required that a town have a nutrient management bylaw in order to be eligible to use those funds. But I don't know, because didn't Chatham use them, or maybe not?
I don't
Maybe
know.
they just used the federal funds.
Well, the other issue
But
you
anyway,
should be aware of,
something to
House
think
Bill
about.
House Bill 824 that was passed, I guess last year, did allow for the use of, say, of chemistry for vegetative management, and allowed for the direct infusion of pesticides and herbicides into drainage ditches and into areas that were contingent to water supplies. I did speak against this when the National Association of County Officials, but the counties in the western part of the country are doing all the vegetative management, and they did not want to invest in the labor cost of doing it. I pointed out to them here in Cape Cod, they were greatly concerned with it because of the, because of water table issues and concentration, and that, but only the, let's see, our friends in New York, I remember the, the county commissioners from Westchester, did vote with me, but the rest of the counties, were supportive of, say what I'd call the Western attitude with regard to those sorts of things. And you might bring this to the attention of our congressman, Mr. Keating, that it's very important that this is something that, in terms of steps, the federal is the primary source of, with EPA and clean water, that the state looks at in order to manage the, those activities. So far, we are resistant to what the federal law allows, and I hope it remains that way, because that's what the people of Cape Cod have told us they wanted to do.
The other thing I want to mention too is how I was thinking just while you were talking about how that bylaw passed town meeting last night. It was almost unanimous. You would have never thought that would happen, because I mean, the people who, of course, maybe a lot of the people who have the homes that really have the manicured lawns weren't there, but the idea was that it actually passed, and there were people there who were landscapers, and only one really had some objections to it, particularly how we enforce it, and there is an enforcement clause in the bylaw. But also how some are people who are going to be coming down in April, and they're going to want to start fertilizing their lawns. How do you do that? Well, we use the water bills as a message center, so to speak, so that messages like that go out with the water bills. But and the thing that really made me think twice about it was the fact that the Water Quality Management Committee that's been working on the whole comprehensive plan actually worked on the bylaw too, and they were the ones that put it together. So they had a lot of credibility because they had worked on the management plan, and they had gone to town meeting and gotten $2.7 million last year or the year before to begin phase 1 of the management plan, and also the $500,000 to do the study of the alternatives. So and that had to go on the ballot, and those questions passed on the ballot with the highest majority of any ballot question the town has ever had, which is amazing, because $2.7 million, a lot of people you would not have thought. But what happened was the town actually hired the Consensus Building Institute to come in all during the discussions. So the Wastewater Management Committee, they had 3 major public meetings that were facilitated by Patrick Field from CBI. And it makes a whole lot of difference when someone who is totally neutral and not part of the town, and people say, oh, I know that person, they've always been against this, or so-and-so, that they're just pushing that because that's what they want. You have a completely neutral person there engaging the public in the discussion. And there were 3 of those meetings. And the first meeting had about, I don't know, 45, 50 people. They were held maybe 2 months apart, so it went over a 6-month period. And then the second meeting had maybe 100 and some people. And by the third meeting, there were over 250 people who came. And these were all residents, they all had questions. And so I thought, now the Wastewater Management Committee now, which has all this credibility, now they come with the nutrient management bylaw, and it passes like that. And I'm thinking, you know, this whole public process thing is something we have to really think about, is how do we engage the public, the citizens in the town, in these matters, so that when they do come up, that people feel like they know enough about it that they can support it or whatever. So I think that's something for us to think about too in the whole regionalization thing. And even in the wastewater planning that we're doing, is that public engagement is so important, because if you don't engage the public in the thinking process, then they may not support it in the end.
Well, we have to have them at the table at the beginning, because we'll certainly have them at the table at the end.
That's right, that's right. Okay, anyway, not to interrupt, but
Yeah, let me just try to breeze through most of these. And in general, I think for the functional recommendations, I think the outcome of the report is that we've been working on all of them. We've sort of embraced them. There are some that are more advanced than others and that we've been working on for a long time, like the wastewater thing. Some that are relatively new, which I'll get to, is like the public safety 911 dispatch. That's a relatively new thing. We've done a study about it, got some money from the state, did a study on it, got a recommendation about what to do, and now we're trying to do that. So, just to go back, Cape Cod Mosquito Control, we met with them. I was supposed to meet with their board the Monday of Hurricane Sandy, and that they were closed, and then we ended up closing, and so that meeting didn't take place. And we're going to look to reschedule that to talk about what will, the piece of legislation that can get Cape Cod Mosquito Control under the county's umbrellas look like. So that's in progress. You guys met with the Cape Cod Compact Board. I think that went very well. It was a good meeting, so I think that one was in process. There are 2 that I would know that we haven't sort of done anything to date on. That's sort of my fault. I scheduled them on our agenda. We just got to put them on there. That's the Workforce Investment Board update and the Economic Development update. So we need to tackle those 2 recommendations. You've heard about the Open Cape, the information office, and those things. Those are on progress, and in fact, there are ongoing meetings of kind of the governance committee for the SIO now that are underway. So I'd characterize that as in progress. I mentioned the 911 dispatch center. The goal is to sort of come up with a single 911 dispatch center for all of Cape Cod, covering police and fire. That's what we're working towards now. There are a lot of issues out there. The sheriff has the dispatch center now, and it's under the state. And I think there's some issues about, or concerns about it being under the state's umbrella. But we're working on that. We're working with the sheriff. He is a member of the kind of steering committee that we have right now, so we're working on that. So I'd characterize that recommendation as in progress. You heard a little bit about the REPC and the role that both the REPC and our AmeriCorps resources play in that. I think we've done a tremendous job kind of pulling together all of the necessary pieces, police, fire, EMS, health, boards of health, into the sort of coordinating a response to a regional emergency. And Sean's done a great job on that, so that one's sort of in progress. And then lastly there was the Health and Human Services issue, and I mentioned some of the hoarding task force, and I think Beth and George and Beth and all the other departments sort of work well together to sort of coordinate the pieces between Health and Human Services and all the county departments that have elements of those pieces in them. So
it nets out to me that 6 out of 11, we've essentially decided that we didn't need to do anything else, and we're working on the remaining 5.
I think that's accurate, Bill. I think there's 2 that we sort of need to follow up on, the Workforce Investment Board and the Economic Development. And that solid leaves the governance recommendations, and that maybe segues into one of my upcoming things. And basically, when we talked about the governance things, these are going to be the hardest ones to do, and they involve changes to the charter. And when I went over the charter with you folks as part of this whole process, and that took a couple of meetings as well, 2 or 3 meetings as well. You know, if you change the structure of the government, the assembly, the commissioners, or the county administrator, you really have to go back to the legislature. That's what the charter says. So you have to sort of keep that in mind as part of the plan you put together to implement whatever changes you decide you want to make. So I think what we decided to do is to try to do this at least through some strategic planning process, and that's where we were with the RFP for the strategic planning piece. I have that here and I can hand that out. And so that's sort of the next step in what we want to do is get someone to help us go through a strategic plan process. Look at the county administrator's position, look at the assistant county administrator's position, look at the assembly, look at the commissioners, and figure us a way to go about implementing the changes we want to make.
I was intrigued by the use of the CBI people, but perhaps one of the things that we could do prior to going, and I know we're going to initiate the strategic planning process anyway, but there seems to be a need for a joint meeting between ourselves and the Assembly to discuss some of these things, and perhaps the consensus building capability of this institute might be useful to get through what I would call the natural, reluctance to support some of the useful recommendations because there's an objection to some of the ones that that set up what I call a complete barrier to doing anything at all. So I'm going to suggest that maybe that would be a point to start with regard to some of the reorganization issues, not for for our internal organization of the commissions, because I think that's our purview, but the things that would require change in both ourselves and the relationship that we have to the Assembly. I think that might benefit from from this organization that you spoke of.
It could very well. I mean, they're an incredible organization. They really are. We're working with them now on the wind turbine issue, and we have met.
Didn't we kill that last night?
That was the bylaw. That didn't come from the wind turbine progress committee. No, that came from the planning board. The group has met 19 times, 2.5-hour meetings each one. So you can multiply that out. Lots of hours. And stakeholders. It's all done under the consensus building process. And they have about 4 meetings left to go, and they're putting together packages for options as to what the Board of Selectmen can do about the turbines. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. But yes, the consensus building, they have extraordinary people that do very, very well. There's another book out, I think I told you about it. It's Working Across Borders. And it's written by, I think it's Michael Malawi, something like that, who is part of the Consensus Building Institute, but he's out in Colorado. And I've only just started it, I haven't finished it yet, but it's really about working regionally, working across borders.
That's not the one you have 2 copies of, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, remember
So
we
I
talked
will
about
loan you
this.
one of my copies. I got ordered 2 by mistake. You know how you click on and you order a book? Well, I clicked twice. So anyway, yes, but it's really something that I think we should all kind of read and see how you can do that. It's fascinating. So
The only thing I'd say to what Bill's suggesting is sometimes it's better to go to the Assembly or wherever, when you're trying to be a consensus, with sort of knowing what you want. So to have your sort of thoughts together. And I'm not sure we do, quite frankly. I think there's some maybe disagreement on the board as to what the county structure is going to look like. So you might want to work that out, and then I don't disagree at all. I think that's a good idea, using some facilitator, whether it's CBI or whoever.
Well, you can't beat
well,
success.
I think we're gonna talk about the scope of services on doing the strategic plan, and that's the internal plan. But it doesn't mean that we can't do both at the same time. But we have to look at the internal issues as well, which is county, CVAC, the compact, all of that, and then look at the next level of governance issues at the same time, which is the recommendations from the special commission. So they can go on parallel courses in a certain way, but we also need to get our strategic planning process in place so we can do the internal review.
There's only one thing I would mention is that CVAC, Cape Light Compact and CVAC, we are contractors to them. They're
Right.
not part of the
I
internal
understand.
operation.
No, except that we have
You have
internal
you have
people who work for them.
representation.
Yeah, we have
exactly.
We have
representation,
representation,
that's
so
right.
and I think
Yeah,
that,
I
you know,
know.
that's something we could
That's-
discuss. But in terms of reorganizing them,
No, we're not reorganizing them, we're
I-
looking at our representation
I
on
don't
those
want
groups.
people who would be watching this to get, you know, to get some sense that we,
You're also looking at staffing.
What's that?
You would also be looking at staffing
Staffing,
of CVAC and.
yeah, that's what I meant, the representation.
that
yeah,
would be
yeah,
part of the
staffing.
contract.
Well, I
Part of
thought
the
you meant
contract
who's on the
response.
board, but
Right,
So,
Okay.
so that's that report.
Thank you.
So,
any public comment on the
any issues or
report?
questions? or-
my,
Jerry, go ahead.
my question is, it keeps getting put off. Is there any reason why you can't, the existing board, look at how they see things, or will they need this long facilitator process to go through it for years?
Oh, no.
We have 6 of these 11 recommendations already addressed.
Well, I'd say more than that, Bill. But anyways, I think the governance ones are the
I mean, the
hardest. to
governance.
do.
Yeah, the governance
governance
one
ones-
is the most difficult one.
Right. And the sort of the charter says if you want to change the charter, you have to go through the assembly. But one of the changes recommended in the report is to do away with the assembly. So it's sort of not as easy as just saying, well, this is what we want to do and shipping it over, because what will end up happening is it very likely may go down to defeat. And so then you're left, where are you? So I think, Jerry, the answer to the question is you have to think through carefully the process you want to go through and the structure you're proposing so that it makes sense to a lot of people.
Right.
And then figure out how you want to get the implementation done.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
sort of why it's a little more time consuming than you might imagine.
And it's just my experience over the years in terms of change is that I've always found that when you manage the change with a set of goals that people have a chance to participate in, they're more successful than if you try to push them through. And I'm not suggesting that you're suggesting that. I'm just saying that we've had discussions about this, and but we really have to get it on paper so that we have a transitional plan in place about how we're going to do this. And it has to be a transition plan because that's the way it's going to have to go. Certain things have to happen first, and before you move to the next step. And we just need to get it on paper before we make any decisions. So we have to know exactly what the outcomes are that we want. We may not want the same outcomes that were recommended to us. We may be looking at different
That's why
outcomes.
I'm wondering.
Yeah,
whether
so
at
that's
that
why
point-
we have to decide that first.
Yeah.
And there's certain ways to get to that too. So it's just going to take a little more time, but we're working on it. It's not sitting off somewhere.
And it's not years, it's
No,
definitely
it's
a
years.
month.
It's yes,
It's
in a matter of
months,
months
yeah.
before we get to that. Because we can't waste time, and we don't plan to. We don't want the grass to grow while
I
we're
don't think
working
we
on
have
it.
wasted time.
Exactly.
I don't think we have wasted time.
Do you have a meeting at 2:00?
Yes, I do.
I
Yeah,
thought
we
I was
better-
gonna say,
I didn't realize that because there are things that we can't cover.
maybe
then.
I should push this off to one of our upcoming
What's that?
meetings. This is the
treasure-
treasurer's
yes,
report.
push it off because we should do the
Yeah.
the strategic planning
plan,
scope
yep.
because
I think we've already read those, and I think.
You have.
Yeah.
And so I do have copies of that's the last thing that we did. It's still a draft. We've never officially approved it. We've talked about it a couple times, so if you guys are comfortable with it, since Sheila's not here, what I'd recommend is you vote to authorize me to put this out pending, Sheila's last minute
Review,
comments and
changes,
review.
yeah.
If she has some comments, we can give her to, next Monday or whatever time frame we want. And then we can get that sort of out on the street. We'll have to do an RFP for it. I don't have a cost estimate now, but it's based
Well-
on some stuff that we're working on with CVAC and some RFPs for that. It's probably going to be, 20, 25.
more than 25. So it should be an RFP just in case.
That's what I'll start it off as.
Start it out
and
as an RFP?
See what we get back, yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm in agreement with that.
I'm in agreement with
And
you,
I think we
too.
ought to start it, we've already looked at this a couple of times, and all
Right.
we'd be doing with that,
Right.
was it wordsmithing by committee?
I know.
Okay, so let's start.
Yeah. So let's
Okay,
just
I'll
go.
move it.
I'll second it. Those in favor?
Aye.
Good. So we'll get that go. Because
Okay.
in here begins the planning process for what we want to do,
Yep.
for the governance as well as the internal.
Okay, and then with that, I would move the, I have one
The summary
question,
of actions.
number
We
14.
have no minutes today.
No minutes to
Hold
approve.
on, Bill.
I have a question on number 14.
Excuse a second, a minute, to the cool, smart residential HVAC equipment program, and to strengthen and
Number 14.
I don't
Second
know the
amendment to the
specifics about, it's changing the
smart-
contract price and rates for residential Cape Light Compact program. But I don't know the
Maybe that's not the
specifics.
one,
That's number
There.
14.
relying upon my memory rather than looking at this one. No, that's okay. Thank you. Oh, there seem to be two contracts for the same thing with two different outfits. I guess it's 12 and it's 13 and 14. Is that, the Second Amendment to Energy Star, Second Amendment to School Smart Residential HVAC?
I think they're two different contracts as the sort of vendor, even though the Cape Light Compact and Hegelson Enterprises are the sort of sub, or maybe I'm saying that wrong. One is, the others are the subs, and I think that's why there's two different ones.
Thank you, that's all I had. I'll move the,
I'll second. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Unanimous. So we're okay on that?
I think that concludes our
I have
business.
two things, Bill, just before you leave. Because of the sort of nature of what was said by Mr. Beatty last week, I asked Elaine to sort of look into this. Elaine Davis, our purchasing chief procurement officer, and so she did. So I just wanted to give you guys a report on what she found. I didn't want to make a big deal about it, but I thought there was.
Net it
some
out,
things
is there
that
any,
were
is there
said.
any reason that we should be concerned with any, what do you call it?
No, I
failure to
think.
comply with the contract?
I think Steve pointed out some issues, which I think are listed in here, that basically we're working on. And, yeah, the second camera was one, and there were some issues, and, but they're being addressed, even as we speak, so to speak.
Okay, from a procurement point of view, are we, should we have any concern about, let's say, about contract compliance going down?
No, quite the opposite. In fact, I think Elaine's memo quite accurately points out that we're saving an awful lot of money.
I believe that was one of the reasons why we were looking for the RFP process.
That's why we did the RFP.
I don't think there's any, is there any action we
So
have to
I
take on that?
don't think you need to take any action. I just wanted to make sure that we kind of
That's
covered our
good.
bases.
Glad that she responded to that.
And then, I should just note that it's that time of the year, of course. It's the holiday season, which means Barnstable counties are doing our annual 4-H food drive. So on the website, the Cooperative Extension website, there's a list of what you can procure, and you can drop that off at Cooperative Extension now through November 30th. Bags of food, if you want to donate, canned goods, pasta, all that kind of stuff, as we normally do.
Do we have any list from them that says the kind of food that they're looking for?
Yeah, right here.
Canned
It's on the
goods.
website.
Okay, great.
Non-perishable?
Yeah, all that. Dried milk,
Yeah.
pasta, canned goods,
Rices.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
beans.
And that's starting,
It's starting now through November 30th.
and where are the receptacles?
I think you can drop it off at Cooperative Extension.
Oh, at the extension.
Didn't we used to have a box in here?
We used to do that, although I think we've kind of gotten
Oh,
away
here, it
from
says so,
that.
located in the basement of Deeds and Probate Building.
Yeah, that's where extension is.
Well, I hope people respond to that.
So, speaking of deeds and probate, we read in the paper frequently that real estate sales have increased and
Yeah.
so forth.
Boy, that's
Do we
wonderful.
have any,
Yes, we have evidence to the fact. Actually, September, and I had told you this I think a while back, September was one of our biggest months in terms of the deeds excise revenues. Going back to 2004, I think it was around 800, I don't have a number in front of me, 800,000. So it was a very good month.
Was there any big
October
event?
came back, no, there was nothing,
No big event like the cake.
right, no outlier.
Yeah.
So October came back to earth a little bit, but it was still a very strong, healthy month. So all indications are that the housing market has picked up. It is improving on Cape Cod. Our revenues certainly show that. Right now, if you go look at what we've collected to date and extrapolate that out for the rest of the year, it's way over what our budgeted amount is. Our budgeted amount is 7. I think the extrapolation is almost 8. So, but you have to temper that because it's not, February can be a bad month because it's short, and January can be a bad month because of the weather. But all things look good right now, at least
So
much
we're
better
meeting
than
our,
they have.
meeting our projections for the revenue expectations.
And we're exceeding them right now, yeah.
Okay, well, let's hope that we keep the variance report, because I don't want to have a feeding frenzy at the end because of,
Yeah, I also don't want people to start spending money they don't
right,
have. And that's,
exactly. Well,
people
that's
don't
what I
have.
was
that's when we have a
thinking.
budget. We have a budget now,
That's
right?
true, right? But people start thinking about next year. So, which is
But-
okay.
But as we approach the budget come January, we should really think about having a budget policy in place.
Yep.
That we determine if there are excess funds like that, how they might be used,
Oh,
where
that's
they
fine.
might be put.
Let me draft something for
And
you guys.
draft a budget policy, because
Yeah.
I think that would be, a-
Good thinking.
Yep. And I did,
what would you do without me, huh?
We're lucky to have you, and we're lucky to have you, Pat, for
Well,
another
thank
4
you.
years.
I did when talking to the department managers about sort of the budget process and upcoming, I did say to them that you guys have an emphasis also on trying to do sort of a performance-based budgeting, performance measurements. And so I told them to start thinking really about measurements and coming up with good measures for the goals that they identify. That's sort of been a weakness. So I think we'll want to bring someone in to help us deal with that when we get to the budget process as
Yeah.
well. So.
That's really exciting kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's,
They hate it. But that's
they hate it, but hey, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
You have to be able to justify what your needs are and how you're spending the money and whether or not it's
And then it's-
doing what it's supposed to do.
And then it's good to say when you go on your town services reports or when you're trying to justify for any reason, you can say, hey, look at, we did 8,341 widgets this year.
Pat, you sound suspiciously like the fiscal probate that is more representative of the other party, my party.
Wow.
Wow.
No comment.
Well, it's about doing, well, I think it's about just being smart about things and knowing what you're doing and not wasting money and having plans. And
Plans.
Having a plan.
Plans, that's
and-
it, that's what we need,
Right.
plans.
Well, you have to plan, and otherwise, you might end up where you're headed. Who said that? Somebody said that during the campaign,
They
one
did,
of the
yeah.
campaigns.
They
If
did.
you don't have a plan, or if you don't know where you're going, you might end up where you're headed, and that may not where you want to. That may not be where you want to be. So,
All right,
anyway,
all right.
all right. Since it's 2:00, a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
I should.